Hi.
And welcome back to Coven, podcast where we cultivate our dream Coven roster, bringing to light the lost stories of enigmatic people throughout history whose fascinating lives echo the complex archetype of the witch. I'm Jenna.
I'm Coco.
And we're your hosts.
Yes.
Welcome back to episode 7.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah.
Episode 7. Season 2, episode 7.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
How's it been? How's
Amazing. Oh my gosh. This is like, I love it. It's just making me fall in love with astrology more and more. How about you?
Same.
Yeah.
Same. And I think school started up this week. So that's been, I feel like, reigniting just the everyday astrology practice.
Yeah. It's been helpful too.
It has been helpful. Well, I'll start with a magic moment.
Yeah.
And then we can just quickly get into it. But my magic moment this week is pretty simple. It's just some synchronicities or asynchronicity. The other day, woke up and it was just about seeing lavender everywhere, or like running into lavender randomly.
Mm-hmm.
Woke up with my partner and yeah, whatever.
I didn't say anything. I smiled. That's all I did, Josh, I swear.
We were making eggs, and there was a seasoning that we were using that randomly had lavender in it, and it was the weirdest thing. We were just like, okay, interesting, didn't know this had lavender, and it was really good. And then we walked to a coffee shop nearby, and this coffee shop randomly was using lavender syrup for everything. And so that was the second time. So I was like, oh wait, this isn't a pattern all of a sudden of like lavender, random lavender in the morning, now lavender in the coffee shop. And then the last time was at a bar later that night with some random people, and a random person who was with us decided to order a drink with lavender, and he was like, I don't ever get lavender drinks. And I was like, wait, this is crazy. I don't really know what the significance would be. I mean, lavender is about like rest and calmness. I think it was kind of just like a chill. I've been doing a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just thought that was a fun synchronicity to note.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually didn't have a magic moment, but now I'm going to say this week, for the first time in my entire life, I ate lavender yogurt.
What is it with lavender?
Don't know.
I mean,
and I've never like wanted to eat it before,
weird.
But I've seen it at the grocery store that I go to all the time, and I just was like, I think I'm gonna try that this week, and I got it and I ate it.
What is it with lavender? I mean, lavender. Is there anything that you're aware of with like spiritual properties of lavender?
No, but now I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I looked it up and it was just like, I mean, what I figured, which was like calming and rest and serenity.
Well, maybe it's, our unconscious, aka the universe, telling us to stay calm during these times.
True.
Yeah.
During these crazy, crazy times.
Yeah.
Because that they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, that's my magic moment.
All right.
So, should we get into it?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So this is the part of the show, if you're just tuning in with us, where I show Coco the natal chart of the person that I'm bringing into our coven. Coco doesn't know who I've researched, who I'm bringing into our coven. So she's going to give a blind natal chart reading before we get into their story. So without further ado, to be careful so you don't see anything else.
And then before you give that to me, is this, do we know their birth time or no?
So this is seems to be a much agreed upon birth time. I had my reservations, but I succumbed. I think it does make sense after all, but there is one other rising sign that would have made sense, I think.
Okay.
But
Okay. Oh, a lot of Taurus energy. So this person probably has a steadfast or like Taurus has always made me think of like they have this will to go and move forward. They're also very earthy, and also love comfort, but they are also very frugal. So it's like when I think of Taurus, it goes Aries, Taurus, Gemini, right? Taurus is the second one. So like Aries is initiatory energy, and then Taurus is just kind of like I don't know. When I think of Taurus, I think of somebody wanting like pulling the blankets over their head and laying in bed and yeah. But anyway, their Sun, Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury in the seventh house in Taurus. And let me see here. And the Sun, or I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, no, Mercury is making a square to Uranus in the fourth house. Is it someone who, I would think that it would be someone who changes things with words. And also beautiful words, and maybe even, well, in the seventh house, one-on-one too, connection, like about maybe talking about the other in a way. And then Chiron and Pisces, I'm looking at the aspects. I've been paying so much more attention to the aspects lately. Maybe, well, philosophy and religion, but transformation of it and healing from it, or helping others to heal from it. Maybe something that has to do with children, or someone who might be connected to or a youthful presence, or
I want to point things out, but I
I
don't
know,
want to
I know, I know.
give you any.
And then there's Scorpio rising. So there's obviously like transformative energy here. And so someone who can help to transform things, or they themselves are transformative. That seems like it's strong. And nurturing, caring, kind, compassionate, but structured, because Saturn there in the ninth house. And then sorry, I'm paying more attention to aspects because of our
That's
class.
okay, yeah.
Okay. But it's hard with all the lines to figure out where these are going. So hold on. So the moon is opposing Uranus too. So like emotional, like transformation, like with emotions, and also I don't know, like maybe someone who is in the spotlight too, because they have their moon and Neptune in the 10th house in Leo, right? And then right in between the moon and Neptune is their midheaven. And so there are someone who like might be like in the public's eye.
And I'll just say the other rising sign that I was torn between for her was a Leo rising.
Oh, okay, okay.
Not to give anything away.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just going to say there's also a Mars here in the sixth house. So initiatory energy about service to others, and drive, structure with their drive. And it's in Aries. So Mars is ruling this house. That's another thing I've been like kind of looking at too, is where the rulers of the houses are, and where the planets are in comparison to the signs that they rule. And that has kind of been like a big deal for me lately. And oh, I'm sorry, their midheaven is over here, not there. That's the lot of fortune.
Right.
I'm so sorry. So anything to do with like groups or and also like organized, someone who's might be a perfectionist in their work.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. There's things that we will stumble on that I think her chart, I was struggling with her chart. And even in some of the transit charts, I was like, it doesn't quite add up as nicely as I want it to. Oh. So you have to like dig. But there are some things that when you hear the story,
okay,
it'll make sense.
Yeah.
A little more sense. But
yeah, who is it?
So
I'm dying.
for episode 7 of season 2, I'm welcoming experimental filmmaker, choreographer, dancer, film theorist, poet, lecturer, writer, and photographer Maya Deren into our coven.
Oh, I've never heard of. Have you, Sierra? Okay, I figured. Yeah. Sierra knew who
Sierra has been a huge help with this episode. Yeah, because Maya is a super iconic filmmaker. Her influence in the world of film. She's kind of one of the first, if not the first, to bring surrealism into the film world in America. Oh. In a way, there were people doing it before her, experimental film and specifically surrealism, but she was really the first to make it a popular thing and to like really give it space. And she was wildly influential. But we'll get into that.
Okay, yeah.
So we'll start at the beginning.
Okay, yeah, please.
So she's born Eleonora Derenkowski in 1917 in Kyiv, Ukraine. Mm-hmm. This is in 1917, so this was the Russian Revolution era, if I'm not mistaken. And she was born into a pretty well-off Jewish family. Her dad is a doctor with pretty good standing in the community. Her mom is an artist. And so because of this is like pre-World War II, but they're like doing okay, but it's still a very scary time for them. Her dad is enlisted to help with the Bolsheviks, and he goes away for some time. Maya and her mom are alone in the Ukraine until Maya gets really sick, and they need to flee to Poland to visit, I guess, this like special doctor at the time. Maya's like 6 years old at the time, and there's this really dramatic moment where they have to be really sneaky about crossing borders, and Maya's mom like leaves her for an extended period of time alone when she's like 6 years old. And she cites this later as like a pretty impactful experience for her of just being absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
So she eventually is fine. Her mom comes back. She gets better, and they immigrate to the States in the early 1920s, and they change their last name to Deren. They get rid of the Kowski because it's pretty, gives away the Jewish heritage, and things are getting a little bit dicey. But the parents, they do really well in the States. Her dad still is a doctor. He ends up opening a center for the impaired, like a psychiatrist or a psychologist. It's like a school for the impaired, I believe, is what he starts to work with. And Maya starts going to school there, but they decide they don't like the education in the States. So they send her casually to Geneva, Switzerland.
Wow.
I know. And I think because her family was well off, but I was going back and forth because I couldn't tell if her family was like rich, because she didn't have much of an inheritance that was left her. She did have an inheritance, but not a big one. So I wonder if it wasn't quite as expensive back then, like boarding school in Switzerland like it is now. Because at first I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Rich.
Fancy.
But she goes to school in Geneva for high school. She's a genius right away. She's recognized by her peers as like the best poet in school. She's outperforming all of her classmates by a long shot. She ends up graduating pretty early. She graduates high school at 15 years old.
Oh my gosh, wow.
But she also cited a lot of just like emotionally troubling times in high school. She's pretty popular, it seems, but all of the kids have a pretty good relationship with their parents. Their parents come to visit, or they write letters a lot. And Maya, even though she's close with her parents, her mom moves to Paris to be closer to her while her dad's in the States still. But even though her
Why
mom...
not Geneva?
Yeah, it's unclear. But even though her mom moved to Paris to be closer...
I have to move to Paris to be closer to my daughter.
Right, but then she never visited her.
Right.
Like,
That's what
ever.
I mean, if you want to get closer to your daughter, why not move to Geneva?
Right. And it's not that far away.
Right.
It's not that much of a difference.
And it's probably just as cool.
Right. Yeah, so it's a little unclear with her mom in that situation, and I can imagine that was an influence on her emotional world and her art world.
Well, I think that like the fact that her mom abandoned her when she was 5 years old, and then again then she moves there to be closer to her, but then she's like and then never visits her. That probably did a number on her psyche.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. So she definitely has some issues with her mom. Like, her mom moved to Paris to be closer to her in school, and yet she would never come and visit, not even on like holidays and things. And Maya wrote her several letters, and she didn't ever respond. And you have these letters that are out there that Maya wrote to her mom that are like, why aren't you coming? Like,
that's so sad.
Yeah, everybody's parents are going to be here for this holiday or whatever. It would be really nice to see you here. And there's also an energy in the letters of she really clearly like values her mom's approval, and she loves her dad. She's close with her dad, but it seems like she really cares about what her mom thinks a lot. So I just think that's interesting. There's not really a ton about her mom, but I'm sure that this was a pretty key part of her
It sounds like it, yeah.
psychological development. But she graduates high school at 15 and then goes back to the States. She attends Syracuse University in New York City at 16 for journalism and political science. She finishes her BA at NYU. And then she gets a master's in English literature at Smith and becomes a socialist activist.
Awesome.
So, yeah, she's like a poet, genius, activist, clearly very driven.
Uranus.
Yeah, opposite Moon and Lilith.
Yeah.
And I think the midheaven in the 11th house, I was waiting for you to say activism with that.
Oh,
very
yeah.
Focused on the communities.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't. Well, I said groups, but yeah, you're right. I don't know why I didn't say that. I'm just looking to see where this square is going to. Oh, yeah, Mercury. Yeah.
Uranus to Mercury.
Uranus is making a square with Mercury. So writing about activism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rebellion and social change.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get to this.
Okay.
Actually,
the transformation, the Scorpio rising.
Well, but there's another part about her chart that I thought you were going to point out, but you were focused on the aspects, and that makes sense. So
it's Becca's fault.
No, they are important. They're really significant, and I think they do tell a more exact, like a more specific story than just focusing on the planets and the signs. So I think it's good to do that.
Yeah.
I think you're correct.
Yeah. I didn't used to pay as much attention to them as I do now. And when I started to, it makes it even more rich.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. Anyway, in college, she marries a football player. She marries a communist football player. I just thought that was funny to include.
Yeah.
They get divorced pretty quickly, but I just think it's funny that she marries a communist football player. And then when she graduates, she starts working as a secretary until her mid-20s. And in her mid-20s, she becomes obsessed with Catherine Dunham, the dancer, the choreographer.
I don't know who either.
She's a black dancer who was a founder of a dance company and an academically trained anthropologist. And yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and this is a technique that Sierra studied.
Oh, really?
Fun fact.
Oh.
So that was a fun parallel. She worked specifically with like West African dance techniques and kind of made her own technique out of it. And Maya is just infatuated with Catherine. And she decides in her mid-20s to find Catherine and essentially impose herself on her and be like, let me work for you. Let me join you. Let me just like be around you.
Wow.
And Catherine at first, from an interview that I was watching with Catherine, seemed like at first she was a little bit hesitant, like, okay, who are you? What are your intentions?
Yeah.
But she quickly warmed up to her.
Oh, good.
And could see that she had good intentions, could see that she was well-meaning.
Right. And not psycho.
Right. Well, probably a little. She was probably psycho.
Oh, really?
She was probably a little, but like,
that's Scorpio.
but like, again, psycho, like Sor Juana psycho. Like, psycho in a really just powerful genius psycho way.
Okay.
But definitely somebody that I can imagine you would meet and be like,
intense.
yeah, like who is
Anybody
this
with the
person?
Scorpio placement, there's some intensity there.
It's true. The Scorpio rising, and I think that Leo moon with Lilith in the 10th house is pretty dramatic. So she starts traveling with Catherine Dunham, and she meets Alexander Hamid.
Not sure how to
Alexander
pronounce
Hamid.
it. Yeah.
And he's a filmmaker and an activist. He's known for anti-Nazi documentaries. So
We like those.
Pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
It seems I didn't do much research into him. I don't know if he actually sucks, but seems like a cool guy just from the brief amount of info that I found on him. They get married. She changes her name to Maya. So she was Eleonora. Yeah, she was Eleonora, and she changes her name to Maya based on the Buddhist concept of the illusion, the illusory nature of reality.
Oh my gosh. You know what's so funny is I was looking at her Neptune right here too, and I was like, there's something that has to do with like, you know, fantasy or dreams or not reality as is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That with and it's also interesting the Saturn Neptune approaching conjunction, because we're in that right now. We're having that Saturn Neptune this year.
Yep. It's coming up.
And in the water sign to fire sign, which is what we're in this year too. So that's kind of an interesting thing in her birth chart. So she changes her name to Maya. She's traveling with Catherine Dunham, mostly as an assistant and a secretary, but she's just so entranced by the world of dance, specifically West African dance. Her dad dies in 1942, leaving her a small inheritance. So with this, she buys a film camera, and she makes her first 14-minute short film with her husband, Alexander, which was a budget of $275, which would be about $5,300 in today's money. First of all, inflation, insane.
Yeah.
From the 40s. But this first film that she makes, her first ever film that she makes with this like camera that she bought with just her husband, who was a filmmaker, but he says in later interviews that he was just holding the camera, that she was doing everything. That because I think most places that I look are like with collaborated with husband filmmaker Alexander Hamid, but he's like, no, I just sat there holding the camera. She was doing all of it.
Wow.
And this is Meshes of the Afternoon.
That's what it was called?
Yeah.
Meshes of the Afternoon.
Meshes in the Afternoon. Meshes of the Afternoon. Meshes of the Afternoon in 1943. And this is still considered to be her biggest, most influential work.
Really? The first one?
The first one.
That makes sense, though.
Long.
Sometimes, like, people, you know, when people are creative and they just allow all of their inhibitions to go away and they authentically create, they can make really amazing things. And then when they try to do it again later, it's like too contrived.
Yeah. And hers, I mean, she never ended up making a full feature. She made, I think, 6 short films. She started on a documentary, but we'll get into that. Okay. But all of her films were pretty incredible, but this one definitely just lasted. I was like, I should print it out. Oh, wait, no, I didn't. It's for something else. I didn't print out the transit chart. But, super influential. This is where she really introduces surrealism to the States in a really profound way. This film is a silent film. She plays with concepts of time. She becomes the face for avant-garde cinema and experimental filmmaking. She's in New York at this time, and the film was filmed in LA. She moves to New York after, I guess, and then she has her... Anyway, so it's filmed in LA. And I thought that I wrote more about this film, but I guess I'll just kind of explain it to you because I watched it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, highly recommend.
Okay.
It's on YouTube, although it's hard to find the silent version on YouTube. There's a few versions where people put their own music behind, but kind of like defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
I think in the original it's just like some drum beats. Because of her influence from Catherine Dunham, she's trying to make her films are like that of they're basically dance films. The way that she plays with time and light and movement. And has some extremely innovative approaches when it comes to filmmaking that had never been used before. And I did write some more of this down, so we'll get to that in just a second. But Meshes of the Afternoon, extremely influential and important film. She moves to New York.
Okay.
She moves to New York, and she has a film premiere for another one of her short films in February of 1946.
She moved around a lot too, and I was just looking at her ninth house here, long distance travel. So yeah.
True. Yeah, and just and she'll move even more, and definitely has a fascination with other cultures. So, when she's in New York, 1946, she has a film screening for one of her other films. I don't know if this was I think this was her second film, and it's hugely successful, completely sold out. It really puts her on the map. If she wasn't already before, she really becomes like the face for experimental filmmaking. And this leads to the foundation of the independent film house in New York City called Cinema 16, which is a super iconic independent cinema. And it eventually leads to the New York Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
So she kind of like not single-handedly, but she's definitely the first to really initiate that scene in New York City. She, the whole time, had a passion for independent art, for anti-Hollywood and capitalistic art making, just anti-Hollywood and capitalism. She was super big in supporting other artists, and she eventually established a foundation called the Creative Film Foundation in 1956 to support independent experimental filmmakers. So very like countercultural, trying to just push people to be independent, small, low-budget films, and not buy into all the things that they're told they're supposed to.
I wonder what she would think right now about social media and everybody making their own their own short films.
I feel like she would love it.
Really?
I don't know. I feel like she would be into it. I think it would be, because it gives everybody access to just create all the time and however they want. She would do some cool stuff for sure with social media. There's a quote from her in 1946 after this, around the time of this film screening, where she says, "For more than anything else, cinema consists of the eye for magic, that which perceives and reveals the marvelous in whatsoever it looks upon." And on her own work, and this is what I was getting at with Meshes of the Afternoon, I thought I included this earlier, but of her own work, she says, "I think they are the films of a woman, and I think that their characteristic time quality is the time quality of a woman. I think that the strength of men is in their great sense of immediacy. They are a now creature. And a woman has the strength to wait because she's had to wait. She has to wait 9 months for the concept of a child. Time is built into her body in the sense of becomingness, and she sees everything in the terms of it being in the stage of becoming. She raises a child not knowing what it is at any moment, but seeing always the person that it will become. Her whole life from the very beginning is built into her, the sense of becoming. Now, in any time form, this is a very important sense. This is a woman's time sense, and I think it happens more in my films than in almost anyone else's."
Wow.
So she really likes to play with time, and she's one of the first to play with slow motion. She plays with time cuts, so her films are never like in chronological order, really. They kind of jump all over the place.
Oh, interesting.
She plays with the concept of vertical time as opposed to horizontal time.
What is that?
Great question.
Can you explain it?
Basically, it's like a time. Sierra, I feel like you would have better insight on this.
Like meshes is circular, so the time like loops over and over again. She like will redo things over and over again. So like for instance, she's always going to a door, and you think she's gonna like finish it through, but then it loops
Jumps to something else.
Oh, okay.
And like another one of her films, At Land, which is maybe the one that you're thinking of, she is like walking through different like she juxtaposes herself over herself, like double exposes. So she'll have like herself entering a scene with herself and walking past it. So she's always
wow.
like
Oh, that's cool.
she's
Yeah.
like she's very observant of like her female figure, and she'll like make herself really big in frames or really small, and she's like examining the female form through herself. And that I would say that's what makes her really interesting, is that she doesn't pretend to be real. It's there's not like a falsity of like it's like clearly manipulated. And that's what
She's making it so that the audience knows that, yes, this is a creation of art. I'm not trying to be anything other than she's being real by yeah. I see.
She was
okay.
really big on the unreal, on the unseen, on all of the things that are not tangible, on like playing with playing with illusion and dream. So like in Meshes of the Afternoon, a big motif is this character with a mirror for a face.
Neptune and the moon in the 10th house in Leo. Yeah, so she's in front of a screen, but she's showing things that are not not like concrete material. It's more like dreamy fantasy kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so super influential in her films. She's also always starring in her films, and I just love that. It's very much the energy of, she like has a really specific vision, and she is going to do everything, including star in it. She's going to write, direct it. She also is known for being super organized with her films, like writing everything down, every scene in like exact detail.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
remember?
exactly. And I think the Taurus there. Also, I guess what I was going to point out about her chart is the Sun, Venus, Jupiter conjunction. Specifically, the Sun and Venus in Taurus is very like embodied. And she was a dancer. She wasn't a professional dancer, but she loved to dance and she loved movement. And so all of her films were about movement. It was about like, it wasn't supposed to be, that was something else with the not horizontal time, but vertical time. It wasn't about like, okay, there's this scene and then there's this scene. It was in a constant state of just like flow and transformation.
Okay. Yeah, like Sierra was saying, circular earlier.
Yeah, circular, and a lot of her films, or in her scenes, a lot of what Sierra was saying, a lot of these scenes would come back, the same scenes from
So it's not
before.
like in sequential order. It's like, it's more just kind of like, flowy.
Yeah, and I guess in that way, the vertical time, it's like building, it's like kind of layering each scene, which I hadn't really conceptualized that before, but that makes sense to me. Like,
especially because she juxtaposed herself onto herself too.
I'm not in Meshes. I don't know if she does, but like little things will change. Like we can show you at the break. It's not very long. You can see part of it, but like she'll come to the table and there'll be a knife, but then the next time it's not a knife, it's something else.
Yeah.
It's gone, or it's in her hand.
Kind of like our background here.
Exactly. Anyway, so super crazy, amazing filmmaker. after this big, wildly successful film screening in New York, she becomes quite the bohemian socialite in New York City, very well known, and she meets Anais.
Oh, no
Anais
way.
Nin. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're friends. She puts Anais in a film.
Oh, my gosh.
So I had to read from Anais' diary.
So did you know this when you were covering her?
Maya, somebody suggested her when I told them that I was doing Anais.
Oh, okay.
They're like, you should do Maya Deren.
Okay,
So I
okay.
did, but I didn't really know the extent. And yeah, Anais wrote about her in her diaries.
What did she say?
So I'm going to read a little bit of that. She said, "We are subject to her will, her strong personality. Yet at the same time, we do not trust or love her wholly. We recognize her talent. We talk of rebellion, of being forced, of tyranny, but we bow to her projects and make sacrifices."
Interesting.
So she like very much had this aura of like, she's just magnetic. She's just, in the New Yorker says that she seemingly ordered the world around her, at least for a crucial moment, to fit into a pattern of her own design.
Mm-hmm.
Very influential. I also think the Leo, Lilith and Leo conjunct the moon in Leo in the 10th house, part of fortune, all there screams inexplicable influence and magnetism. Yeah, she used her innovative use of 16mm film and essays that set out her aesthetic philosophy, explored various modernist concerns, including experiments in non-linear time, as well as disjointed space through experimental techniques such as the jump cut. She was particularly interested in how these experiments with time and space could allow film to work together with dance in a way that exceeded the possibilities of the theater stage. So just super interested in combining movement in film. She kept spending time with Catherine Dunham, remained heavily influenced by dance and movement, and her love for it just grew, and she just wanted to get more and more involved. In 1946, also, she applies for a Guggenheim grant, which is the first time any filmmaker has applied for a Guggenheim grant, and she receives it. It's also the first time any filmmaker had received a Guggenheim grant. So I do have the transit chart for that I'll show you for when she receives the grant. And this is one where it was like, it is confusing to me, but it also kind of makes sense. All of this in her 12th house, she has all of this Libra in her 12th house with the grant, like Jupiter and part of Fortune and Chiron and Neptune. In her 12th house is interesting to me. It's not what I was expecting to find, I think, with.
Well, I mean, at the same time, actually, I think it does make sense because, like, the 12th house is also transcendence, and it's when I think of, I mean, the 12th house is Pisces, right? The 12th house is also Jupiter and Neptune, right? Well, Neptune because of Pisces, but Jupiter ruled Pisces before we even knew that the outer planets existed. And so to me it would be, and it's all in Libra, and then Venus is over here in the 6th house, right, across from it in Aries with over her natal Mars. So that's like all of her drive right there is being touched by beauty, and it rules all of this. And then also what's interesting too, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Jupiter is retrograde, Chiron is retrograde, and Neptune is retrograde, and something that I was just listening to Chris Brennan today, and he was talking about in one of his podcasts about when it's him and Austin Coppock were talking about, like, when you get an award for something or you get something, it's like you've already like done the work. But if it's in retrograde, then you're kind of looking back at it. So they gave her a grant because of the work that she'd already done, right?
Well, and for what she was about to do. So she applied for the work that she was
Yeah.
trying to do. But yeah, they did.
They had to look at her previous work
Yes.
though in order for them to give her that grant
Yeah.
to do something new, right?
Yes. Yeah, she did earn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does make sense with like Saturn. She's approaching her Saturn return, and Saturn and Mars are conjunct too in her 9th house. And this makes more sense when I tell you what she used the grant for.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, what'd she do?
So she receives the Guggenheim grant, which she uses to fund a trip to Haiti, which is a culture that she's been interested in for several years, inspired by Dunham.
Okay.
Or Durham. Dunham. I typo. Like Durham. It's Dunham. Dunham. And she writes, I am concerned with the point of contact between the real and the unreal, where the unreal manifests itself in reality. So her films were intended as imaginary arenas where this point of contact could be visualized, where boundaries that were normally fixed could dissolve or become wildly flexible, where protagonists could move freely between dreams and waking life without ever resolving the differences between the two. So her years in Haiti and her intense involvement with voodoo can be seen as her quest to experience a living culture that gave credibility to the unreal and thereby embody the vision that she sought in her experimental films.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, she was trying to capture, she got into ethnography, an ethnographic film, and she was trying to capture what she saw in the movement in like the Haitian ritual movement of voodoo. She was fully aware going into it of the like problematic
Objectification.
Yeah, of the
problem with anthropology in general.
well, ethnography and ethnographic film work. She describes as parasitic, I believe. And so she has a lot of thought going into this. Parasitic exploitation.
Yeah, I was thinking like subjugating, like
And this is an interesting one to follow up.
That was the first thing I thought when you said that, but I didn't want to say anything. I wanted to wait.
So I actually, when I started researching Maya, I just barely touched on this and I was like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this person.
Yeah.
Brought it up to Sierra and I was like, I have to change my person. And Sierra was like, no, do a little more research, dive a little bit deeper. Her mindset going into it was trying to not view it through the lens of like Western, of a Western gaze. She was trying to just fully capture it for what it was, but she was also aware that that wasn't really possible coming from her position and bringing in cameras for the Western audiences. It wasn't really a possibility. So she actually doesn't end up filming or finishing this documentary, but she does have a lot of film for it. It ended up being finished after she died by her final husband.
So did she stop doing it because she was like realizing more and more how problematic it was? Or?
So her biographer, Mark Alice Durant, who is recently came out with a biography called Maya Deren, Choreographer for Camera. He says that she left the film unfinished on ethical grounds. And regards that that the uses and abuses of the visual representation of a religion and a culture that was neither hers nor that of her most likely viewers. And in any case, Durant adds, she didn't have the money to finish it.
Oh.
So ran out of funds.
Didn't give her enough, or
right. Ran out of funds, but also it sounds like she was really conflicted at the more that she got immersed into the culture and the more that she realized the implications of this work and filming this. I think she started to kind of retreat a little bit. She also just got really invested in this culture and in these people. She did end up writing a book based on her experiences that was edited by Joseph Campbell.
Oh, wow.
Called Divine Horsemen, The Living Gods of Haiti. And that is what the documentary is called. And you can watch it. It's on YouTube. Really fascinating documentary. It was completed by her final husband after she died. But I really want to get the book because it sounds super interesting.
Yeah.
So Haiti. She is immersing herself in Haitian culture, religion, and friends. She's especially interested in voodoo and the rituals of spiritual possession through movement. So this is what's most fascinating to her. This is what she's trying to capture. Because in voodoo, you're initiated and then you receive certain deities into your body and move with them. And so the dances in these rituals are just like completely embodied and like possessed and spiritual. And it is the most magical, beautiful thing to watch. Also a little bit like, I think if it's not something that you're used to, it's intense. I mean, they're literally moving to try to welcome in these ancient deities inside their bodies. And so you see the moment in this documentary where the deities enter into the body, and it is like possession.
Wow.
So, but it's like, it's something that's in their culture, that's been in their culture for, I mean, forever. And so it's, to them, it's not like a scary thing.
Right.
It's like a really exciting, magical, beautiful thing to be like selected as the vessel.
Yeah, the scariness comes from the Western perspective, for sure.
Totally.
It's also like a stayed in African culture. Like if you go to African church and oh, you caught the spirit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's really interesting to watch. The way that they describe it is like a rider mounting a horse, basically.
Oh.
Like the gods coming in and just like taking over your body for a moment. And really fascinating rituals. And she just thought they were the coolest thing. She thought that it was
They sound
so
really
magical.
cool. I'm gonna check this documentary out. I want to see the book too.
Yeah, I want to read the book.
Yeah, actually, what you were just saying, it's also, okay, yeah, with the deities coming in, that just seems very...
all of the 12th house. Yeah, all of the 12th house does make sense when you think about what she's using the grant for. I just found it interesting that receiving the grant itself was so... Yeah, it was so aligned with like the work that she was wanting to do, which I guess that makes sense. And even like the 9th house, like the different like cultural...
Were you saying like that you were, it didn't make sense to you at first because like she didn't finish the work, or?
No, just that I would expect for receiving a grant, I would expect maybe some more 8th house activity, which she
Other
does
people's
have the
money.
North Node and Uranus in the 8th house, not super close. And she
Yeah.
has that like North Node conjunct her vertex. And
Because
or I would
even-
expect like the 10th house maybe or something.
I see. Yeah. Even if, well, I was just like, I was just thinking like, even, or maybe, you know, it was meant for her to not finish and also meant for her to, you know, come to some realizations about how problematic something like that can be.
Right.
And,
And also just maybe like more divine. It was more intended for her.
Yeah.
Than
Rather
it was
than
for
the public.
anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also back to her birth chart, but where did her natal chart go? Back to her natal chart, with the Taurus and Venus, just like dancing makes sense. I don't remember if I already mentioned that. But
Yeah.
anyway, so one of these voodoo gods, one of these Haitian gods that she super connects with is the goddess of love, Erzuli. And I just want to read what she says about the goddess of love. And this one, I have so many quotes in this outline. Just like
Sierra's gonna be like,
I already cut them down. I already cut some of them down. But there's so many quotes because everything she says is just so magical. And it's like, it's so, I just don't know how I can say it better or explain it better than just reading it directly from her.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So she says of Erzuli, she says, their goddess of love is a very fascinating and complex idea. She is, in fact, the goddess of all luxuries which are not essential to survival. She is the goddess of love, which, unlike sex, is not essential to propagation. She is the muse of the arts. It is strange that one would have to go to an apparently primitive culture such as Haiti to find an understanding in such exalted terms of what the essential feminine role might conceivably be. that of being everything which is human, everything which is more than that which is necessary. Taken from this point of view, there is no reason in the world why women shouldn't be artists, and very fine ones.
You know, it's interesting because the Western mind has this idea that if they are, if there's any other culture that isn't doing what the Western people are doing, that they are primitive. And I disagree with that.
No, that's what her work was about, was to really focus on, that's what her, I think, initial goal was to look at these things that we call primitive and really to re-examine what our use of that word is. Right. And just because they're dancing in this way, in reality, they're just way more connected to their gods and to their ancestry than we are. And it's something that we've
indigenous cultures didn't have rapists and murderers like we have over here in the West. Because of the way that their societies were set up in the democratic style. And then something else that I was just talking about with Chris today is a lot of them were matriarchal societies as well. So it doesn't mean that women were in charge or that they were the boss. It's totally different from a patriarchal society that's there's,
somebody in charge.
Yeah, exactly. It's more everybody's working together.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I also just found it really interesting, Erzulie being, the way that she describes Erzulie sounds a whole lot like Venus.
Yeah, exactly. Venus is the sun,
And she has Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, so much Taurus, sun conjunct Venus in Taurus. With Jupiter in the 7th house, with Mercury too. She has all of this Venusian energy.
But Taurus Venusian energy, not more Taurus than Libra.
She doesn't have any Libra energy.
Yeah, which is more
embodied.
Yeah, ground, and I think of like the earth and rocks and water and being in your body.
Yeah. Sensuality. It's the senses, I think of with Venus and Taurus. And so there is an article from the Gray Art Museum, and I'm not going to read this whole thing 'cause this is a long one, but it does talk about her significant contribution to the postmodern discourse. And it says that her most significant contribution is probably her profound understanding of the ties that link avant-garde and the primitive, so the Western and the other. And early into the project, she becomes aware that she can't separate the dance from the ritual from the religion, and the religion from the history and the local culture. So she sets aside the project in order to study the organic wholeness of voodoo within the context of the Haitian life. The Haitian community's belief in the normality of such happenings reflects a cosmology with complex spiritual implications, where ritual practices have the power to unite mortal and immortal in a single dance. So she just her whole perspective of what she wants to study and what she wants to learn and what she wants to focus on and how she wants to convey it completely shifts when she understands, whoa, this entire cosmology is completely different than the one that I grew up in.
Right.
And the one that I'm trying to present to.
Yeah. That's amazing that she was humble enough. I mean, considering the way her personality sounds, how she's very from what Anais was saying about her being so bossy and brash, to be that humble to say, wait, hold on, I need to rethink this.
Yes.
And what's interesting too is it makes perfect sense in the 7th house when she was talking about, figuring out self and other.
Yes. Yeah. Bridging the gap. And it's super interesting because in a lot of my research, it's the same kind of pattern that I get with these really iconic women artists, where it's she just loved attention. She always found a way to be at the center of attention. And I think that's interesting.
That's all we care about.
To talk about, but it's also just every artist loves attention.
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of our whole thing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the whole, you wouldn't put yourself out there.
Oh, Sarah disagrees. Some people don't want attention.
Not in different ways, but to put yourself out there is to believe that you have something worth expressing and worth sharing. And it's not that everybody wants to be the center of attention all the time and be in the limelight and be the one on the stage. But to express yourself is to, in some way, have the desire to be seen. And I think
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't be an artist if you didn't have the desire to be seen in some way.
Even to be able to see your own unconscious or see yourself, to be able to put, so many artists that do self-portraits and alone and might not even ever show anyone ever, but they maybe want to be able to see themselves.
Right, by putting it on a page or something. Yeah. And anyway, I believe that she probably did like being recognized and seen. But it's also like how many, just back to the whole how many men have these same attributes that are obsessed with being seen, but nobody ever talks about that in that way. It's just kind of accepted, or it's just kind of...
Right.
It's just not even thought of. But in a situation of a really powerful woman, it always seems to be included in the conversation.
That we just want attention.
Yeah. But I bring that up because of what you're saying of the humility that like the self-awareness that she would have to be able to to
get a grant like that.
Yeah.
The expectation is that you're going to finish your project. Totally. And if you don't, then, there's something wrong with you. But she didn't see it that way. She literally was like, no, there's something wrong with how I'm approaching this. And I need to figure something else out.
Yeah. So even though she was bold and confident and charismatic and liked being in front of the camera, liked being seen, she still had that level of groundedness, that Taurus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
something I wish I had more of in my chart.
Yeah. I relate to that. There's in an interview of her work in Haiti, an interviewer said, "Maya, do you feel that people in the audience looking in tonight are pretty skeptical looking at this talk about voodoo?" And Maya says, "Well, I don't think they would be if they just related a little bit to the things that they've felt from time to time. For example, those moments when they forgot themselves and when everything was clear by a certain logic that was larger than themselves. Those moments, imagine those multiplied 1,000 times, so that oneself is really transcended and everything is clear in another way. I think one would begin to know what I mean. I think artistic inspiration is in that direction. I think love is in that direction. The logics of love are different from the logics of non-love."
Wow. Even the way that she talks sounds non-linear.
Yeah.
It's like everything that she's saying sounds like what you guys were talking about earlier, her being circular, but also because that... she couldn't have answered that question better, because I'm wondering what the person who was asking the question, what they meant by that. Yeah. And she was able to answer it in a way that just summed it up in a way that didn't go in that direction that it sounded like
didn't
that person
take the bait.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's true. Like when we're talking about spiritual possession of the movement, even though it's more visible in the Voudon rituals of movement and dance, it is something that we all experience at one point or another, whether it be in falling in love or being possessed by some creative inspiration or idea.
Yeah, taking mushrooms and dancing at a hippie sabotage concert. I've just heard that happens to people sometimes.
Maybe that would be something. Yeah, exactly. We've all experienced this sense of being out of body and just kind of being lost in this trance state.
Yeah, totally.
So in this piece by Elliot Evans that discusses the implications of ethnography and her own work with it and her own perspective on it. They say that after visiting Haiti, Deren describes the ethnography as this parasitic exploitation, but does her refusal of film suggest that she recognizes something particularly violent in the filmic gaze, because ethnographic film has a particular investment in the primitive, as Deren was aware. And the earliest ethnographic films relied on the perceived difference between white, Western civilized, and modern filmmakers and non-white, primitive, tribal, backwards peoples rendered on mute on screen. So because of just even the language barriers alone, when you're filming other cultures, they can't even speak for themselves. Like it's just an immediate difference, immediate like, oh, we are us.
It's like a lack of consent.
Yeah,
there was no consent, and then and also the gaze, the white Western gaze.
Yeah,
and the perspective that they are coming from is not
right.
It's not it's problematic.
Yeah, it is just problematic inherently, and I think she started to understand that there's not really any way to do that ethically.
Yeah.
No matter how much you want to immerse yourself and be with them, you just are coming from a different place, and the people who are going to watch your films are coming from a different place, and yeah, so I do think that a book makes sense, and I do think that it was important work that she was doing.
So she just said, okay, forget the film, I'm going to write a book instead? Or?
Yeah,
wow.
and for those reasons, and it sounds like, yeah, for money reasons as well. Yeah, so she explicitly did not want to be an observer or to be different, at least in this moment she recognized the inescapable dynamics of her aesthetic gaze as a white U.S. citizen. But she viewed Voudon as a connection to primal life force, representing ancestral wisdom and cultural memory, while also noting the culture's vulnerability to Western modernization. She recognized the problematic ethnographic gaze and attempted to move beyond it, but couldn't move forward in a way that felt right.
Good.
So
that's good.
Her work in Haiti finishes with that, but she has a love for it always. And there's some crazy stories. I won't get into them here, but she, in another documentary that I'll list in the sources, that's of Maya Deren, there's a story from somebody else who remembers like a wedding where they wanted her to do, have it be like a traditional like Haitian wedding, because she became known for this, which has its other implications of like bringing it to the States and everything. But anyway, there's just like a crazy story of like her working with one of the Haitian gods and being possessed. And this person swears that because when she went to the wedding, they like didn't have things set up the way that they needed to, the way that she had asked for. And there's a story of her like picking up a refrigerator and throwing it across the room.
Wow.
And he's like, nobody believes me when I say this, but I was there. I witnessed it. I was terrified.
Wow.
And he's like, it's because she was working with this god of I forget the god, but of like ritual and ceremony or something. And it was like blasphemous what was going on. And so it was like the rage of a god.
That's what I was going to say. The gods were pissed.
Yeah, super interesting. So back in the States, she continues working in film. She gets divorced from Alexander, marries somebody else. I didn't write his name down.
That's okay.
And her final film is The Very Eye of Night.
Very Eye of Night.
And it's also a really cool film, also very misunderstood. It's a pretty rough one for her because I think it received the worst feedback from the public. It was the least understood of her works. Like people would say things, I think a lot of the criticism was that it seemed very like childlike, and that was kind of a big point of it, was that it was supposed to be like non-Hollywood. It was supposed to look handmade.
Interesting that they use that way to describe it. Was it just like not what Hollywood was used to?
Some of the effects that she was using, like there's a big part of it is like a backdrop that's supposed to look like stars. And it is just like a black backdrop with like
plastic stars.
Well, like with just like dots on it that she's like moving on like a piece of paper. And it looks homemade, and it doesn't. It's not like high tech. Yeah. Not that there was super high tech stuff for film at the time. But yeah, her point was that she was specifically being anti-Hollywood. And then October 13th, 1961, at 44 years old, she dies of a brain hemorrhage. So very young.
Yeah.
And very suddenly, very unexpected. And there's some interesting theories about that also in the documentary that I watched
Oh,
that I
really?
won't get into.
Okay.
But it's interesting and really tragic. But she single-handedly put experimental cinema on the American cultural map and also became its iconic visual presence. And important to note that she and Katherine Dunham both were the main influences for some wildly famous men. For Maya, you might recognize names like David Lynch,
Oh, yeah.
rest in peace, Orson Welles, and
Uh-huh.
Stanley Kubrick.
So
All of these
she
people
knew them?
No, these people were influenced by her work.
Oh, they were influenced by her,
she's
yeah.
far
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
earlier.
know. I don't know why I said that.
No, she's
Can you
far,
put that out there?
she's far earlier than these people.
Yeah.
They all cite her as like one of their main inspirations, especially David Lynch, and especially with her work on Meshes of the Afternoon.
Wow.
Her very first film ever.
That is so awesome. And I
Yeah.
bet not many people know that a woman influenced them.
I don't think so. All you
Yeah.
David Lynch fans out there, do yourself a favor in his honor and go watch all of Maya Deren's films.
I'm going to.
Yeah, although she completed only 6 short films in her lifetime, her impact on the history of cinema is immeasurable. Maya was brilliant. I'm going to start that over. Maya Deren was brilliant, multifaceted, fiercely intentional, bold, and daring. Her commitment to challenging traditional perspectives remains a powerful influence in art today. Her awareness of the implications of ethnographic film was far ahead of her time, and her conscious participation in her creative projects is a strong model for how artists should engage with their work. So I am honored to welcome Maya into our coven today.
Yay! Welcome, Maya. I imagine her. What is she doing? Dancing.
Definitely dancing.
Welcoming.
I feel, again, I mean, she'd probably be saying hey to Anais. It seems
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It seems like
Of course
they were
they'd be hanging
friends,
out.
but it seems like maybe they had some tension a little bit, like
Well,
a little bit of like,
I mean, a coven wouldn't be a coven if there wasn't
with
a little bit of
drama.
yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they were both pretty bold figures who did, yeah. It seems like the energy that I got from Anais with Maya and reading her writing about her was Anais liked to be the one that was like eccentric and bold and the one that everybody was like drawn into. But
Yeah.
it seemed like when Maya was in the room, she couldn't be that. It was always going to be Maya. And so, yeah, it seems like they were friends, but there was a little bit. And I think I remember hearing that Anais was in one of Maya's films, and that's what ruined their friendship because Anais hated how she looked in her film. and she didn't like how she was portrayed. I can't imagine Maya, intentionally engaging in any of that. Yeah, it seems like Maya was just so wholly focused on her art at all times. And similar to Anais in that way of like their entire life was about their work. Anais was a little more focused on people and relationships. That's
Yeah.
all there was to it. Maya was a lot more just like art,
Yeah.
movement, dance, like didn't seem to care much.
Yeah.
But clearly she was very compassionate. She had a big heart. She cared about people.
Yeah, and she also did. I mean, I think that from what you were saying, it doesn't sound like she didn't care about relationships or it wasn't as important to her. But I think that she just approached it in a different way because of all of that seventh house energy and self and other. That is a relationship as well,
Right.
but just different. So
Yeah. They'd probably be chatting. Who else would she? She and Ana Mendietes
yeah, I was
would
thinking
have.
that. Yeah,
I mean, they're both like. Didn't they both have Taurus
yes
placements?
Yeah, and I was thinking the whole time. I was like, oh, Ana Mendieta would have loved because honestly, watching some of her films, Ana Mendieta's films, you have to watch them in silence. You can't have anything in the background.
Yeah, both
it's
filmmakers, both like embodied. Yeah, I bet Maya would love Anna.
Yeah, they'd go hang out together.
And would they have been in the same? Would they have overlapped at all? 60s.
I can't remember what year Ana Mendieta was. Ana Mendieta was born in.
I'm remembering
in the 40s, I think.
Was it 40s?
I thought. Sierra's going to tell us in a second.
I can't remember. For some reason, I was thinking she died in the 80s.
I can't remember.
She was born in 1948 and died in 1985.
Yeah,
okay.
48.
Okay, so...
I don't know why I didn't remember that. That was the year my mom was born.
So she would have been pretty young when Maya died, but a little bit of overlap there. Yeah. Cool. Well, anyway, welcome, Maya.
Welcome, Maya.
Highly recommend reading anything that she writes or says, watching her films. She is like so enigmatic to just watch too. She has like this like big head of, not a big head, but like curly red hair.
Oh yeah.
And that's also why I was like Leo rising maybe.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, she is so just magnetic. And how she moves and her appearance, but also just how she just does anything.
Yeah.
You had mentioned in the beginning, Coco, that she was like beauty. Like she's
stunning.
Very uniquely beautiful.
Very uniquely beautiful. She looks beautiful like in today's beauty standards, which is another really interesting thing. Yeah,
without even trying, I bet.
Yeah.
Without even trying.
Kind of weird looking, but not like.
Yeah.
She's very like she's captivating.
Very captivating. Yeah, I think that's probably the best word to describe her. Just in general, her art that she makes, everything about her is so captivating.
Interesting. Yeah, I think the Scorpio rising fits.
It does. It does. I resisted it a little bit, but it does. That's why I ended up going with it, because I was like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Other astrologers. I agree with you. Anyway.
All right.
It's been...
yeah.
Oh, hint.
Oh.
Let's get a hint for your
Sure. I will give
week.
you a hint. All I'm going to say is the Statue of Liberty.
Oh. Okay. Cool. All right.
I mean, there's a million hints I could give you, but it would be too close to figuring out this person.
I feel like I wonder if I know who this is.
Really?
Is there somebody that the Statue of Liberty was based on? Or
No.
that's rumored to be?
No.
Okay.
That's not
Never
it.
mind. Okay. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
Excited to hear it.
Yeah.
This has been another episode of Coven. Tune in next time. Bye.